right, everybody, how we doing? It is Trade School with Doc Severson here today at ReadySetCrypto, Friday, the 29th of March in 2019. Welcome aboard. For those of you that are joining me live, hello. Let me know that everything is working okay. I have this persistent fear of talking into a vacuum and nothing's working, right? And if you are watching on a replay, welcome aboard as well, too. I want to make you feel like you're sitting down with the rest of us and enjoying a little Friday afternoon chit-chat about the markets. Hi, Tig. Thank you for checking in. Good to see you again. All right, so what I'd like to do today, I am Little Doc down here in the lower left-hand corner. I'm going to try the left-hand corner. I'm going to switch things up on you guys a little bit today, and to see if that is going to be a little bit less invasive to blocking stuff that's on the screen. But if I have to, I can get rid of myself on the screen. All right, what we have to do today is I have to correct some sins of the past. So I gave part one of BitMEX last week, and in doing so, I completely messed up the risk management section of it, the sizing and the risk management section. I can't believe nobody called me out on it like an embarrassing fashion. But I sat down over the weekend because I was building the module for it, and I'm like, I realized right then and there, I was like, oh my gosh, I just completely led everybody down the garden path. So let's redo this today. I've built a little tool, which this is the way I have to do things. I don't like the way that BitMEX has sort of put this together. I think it's very difficult for most people to figure out what size position that they should be setting up. They do include a little calculator up there, which I think is next to worthless for this. So we're going to make it a little bit more applicable. I'll show you the tool that we have online for this, which is also included in the futures class, master class. And that's pretty much what I want to cover today. So it could be a shorter session depending on how many questions that we have today. Plus, I'll take any questions that you guys have as well, too. Hey, Crypto Maniac, how we doing out there? And Hemisphere Builders Limited. So a quick commercial for Hemisphere Builders Limited. If you want something built in a semicircular fashion, please reach out to my friends at Hemisphere Builders Limited. All right, let's get going here. We're not going to be talking about any trades today. We'll keep it clean. So today's topic, again, using the BitMEX interface, position sizing and risk management on BitMEX. Extremely important, and it's very important because of the fact that I still see to this day so many people just getting destroyed on BitMEX. I've talked about this before. I believe it is a weapon of mass destruction that's available to the retail trader because nobody shows you how to use this thing, and they don't really show you how to use this thing. The help files that are on the platform are skeletal at best and offer next to nothing in terms of help. So this is our job here today. Show you guys how to do this without getting wrecked. So please ignore the risk management discussion from last week's session in the trade school on how to set the risk to 2% per position. We'll do it right today. That method works with the spot broker. So what I was doing is saying, okay, 2% of your account and size this position to 2% of your account. It doesn't work that way. That is not the way it works, right? It's like that commercial. It doesn't work like that. That's not how it's done. Okay, so with BitMEX's perpetual contract, again, you're not buying something. You're renting it. You're jumping on a train and you're riding that train either forwards or backwards for a while. It's all like you're renting a car. You're not going to buy the car. You're not buying the entire asset. You don't buy a futures contract. You rent one. You jump on board, you take it in one direction or another, and then you hop off. It's not meant to be something that you take home with yourself and tuck it under your shoulder and take it home, like the spot contract. The spot, like spot Bitcoin, is something that you can, well, I don't know if you can actually hold it in your hand, but it's an entity that you can literally own. And what's interesting is that some of the new contracts that are going to be coming out, like on Backed, and I forget the name, what is it, ErisX or something like that, the TD Ameritrade version of it. So these guys are coming down the road, and this is going to be big time. This is going to be big time volume coming in. And they are going to have physically settled futures contracts. Now, what on earth is that and why is that important to you? Well, everything that we're trading right now, which is some type of a Bitcoin or some other kind of cryptocurrency contract, is cash settled. It's cash settled. So it doesn't matter if you take that to the end of the quarter or the end of the contract or whenever it is. Whatever happens is you're settled in cash from the difference of the entry price to the mark exit price. At the settlement of that contract, you get the difference. Quite honestly, nobody trades them like that. The reason why people use settlement is in futures, settlement really matters if you are actually hedging something. So an example of that would be if you're hedging the price of oil with oil futures contracts. You want physical settlement of that. You want to be able to lock in the price for you to be able to purchase a barrel of oil at a certain price that you basically are paying on there to be able to secure that price. Or if you're hedging a bushel of wheat or corn or something like that, again, you're locking in that price and you want physical delivery of that. So literally you could end up with a barrel of oil on your front doorstep, physically settled. You know, sir, where would you like this? So what we're going to be doing in futures coming down the road here in 2019 is we're going to have physical settlement of Bitcoin futures. So you can actually, if you lock in a price on something, you'll be able to exercise that contract and receive the price that you set up. Okay. Again, I don't think most people are going to be trading futures in that manner, but it is important to talk about and let you know the difference between these. So that is not how BitMEX's perpetual contract is going to be. Everything that BitMEX does is going to be cash settled. Okay. So let's kind of walk through the problem here. What are we trying to do when we're entering a position? So if we go through the futures masterclass and if we come up with some kind of a system where if you're going to go long on a contract, you want to buy low, sell high, find some kind of an edge to get some kind of a hook entry and ride this thing up for a few bucks. What do we need to do to enter a position? Well, when we see a signal, so we define a signal in Module 5, we need to be able to act as quickly as possible to capture the edge. It's not one of these like, oh, let me phone my broker now using my rotary dial and tell him to enter a position. Markets are far too fast for that. Although they're kind of slow right now. It's actually easy markets to trade right now compared to how it used to be because things are moving slowly. They're a little bit easier to enter, but still, when it gets up and moves, it gets up and moves. So the point here is, though, when you see a signal, there's no dilly-dallying around on this. There's no like, well, should I or shouldn't? No, it's either yes or no. You need to be able to act quickly. We want to make sure that we can afford the entry. Can you afford the entry? What on earth am I talking about with that? Well, okay, let's say we're going to go long at this price. So here's the price, it's moving around. And we want to go long here. Let's say we want to put our stop down here. There's our stop, and maybe we have some kind of, there's our profit target, which is up here. Okay, so here's our entry point, and here's the risk on the position. Is this delta P, delta price? That's the risk on the position. Can you afford that stop loss? We don't know, do we? We don't know what the change in price is. We don't know how much the leverage of the contract is. There's so many things that we don't know about it. And frankly, that's how a lot of retail traders are stumbling into a position where they don't really know what size they should be in the position. They don't know whether that's a good place to put a stop. They don't know whether they can afford it. And they don't know how much risk is being incurred on that position if they were to hit on the stop. So that's not good. There's an awful lot of things that you have to calculate within the span of a few seconds to be able to figure this out. So that's what I mean by being able to afford that entry. Sometimes your stop loss is so big that you cannot afford that entry. So ideally what you're going to be looking for, and we don't talk about this all that much, but if you're is your entry, I'll do a little E here. If here's your entry and if here's your stop, which is relatively close, but not too close, and if this is your target, which is way up there, then you can see that we have a really nice looking reward to risk on this. So this could be maybe this is a multiple of 1 and this is maybe a multiple of 5. So we have the 5-to-1 reward to risk ratio on this trade. Okay, so at least on paper, this one looks pretty good because if we're wrong, we're not risking a whole lot. But what people do is they get these big, huge stops that are way down here and are frankly not realistic. And the reward to risk is actually below 1. Maybe you're looking for a profit target that's, well, I'm just want to win. You know, we all want to win. But it's, you know, we're usually entering when things feel good. And that's why we get into this conundrum. So again, we want to make sure that we can afford the entry. We want to make sure that our stop is in the right place. We could spend a whole day on how to determine whether a stop is in the right place or not. A lot of us want to put it way down there, right? Put it way down there to make sure it doesn't get hit and give ourselves a lot of room. Well, again, can you afford that stop? And we want to make sure that we define our exits on both sides. Again, rule number 1 of risk management is to define our exits before we enter. Okay. And we want to make sure that we're using the correct amount of capital or risk to ensure no more than 2% exposure on that trade. Now, before I get into BitMEX and show you this method, I do want to take a quick little detour here and talk about brackets. And this is something that's going to be cool and that you'll see with, I hope that you will see with vendors like Digitex. If this is our entry, what you're going to define, and this is what I showed in the first module of the futures program, I showed like TD Ameritrade using bracket orders, or one cancels other. So when you enter, automatically what happens is you enter a position and it automatically throws a bracket onto there. It automatically, so you predefine what your bracket is. You predefine what your bracket is. So in this case, this would be a stop. This would be, you know, a limit. And so you want the price to go higher, but you have a defined risk and you know exactly what position size that you're going to use. And so it automatically will keep you on the high and dry through that. It's just that your stop may not be at a technically great place, but in most cases, you can actually drag these things up. You don't want to drag them down ever, ever, ever. Don't want to drag a stop down. You want to drag them up to trail that stop if the position goes in your direction. So that's a one cancels other. So that is, I don't know. This is going to be one of the questions that I ask Adam in another couple of weeks or so here. Supposedly I'm going to have a wee little interview with Mr. Todd of Digitex. I think they're getting close to releasing, which will be good. Okay, let me stop. Any questions before I go down the rabbit hole here? Any other questions? Is this all making sense to you guys? Okay, so I will dawdle here for just a minute because I know we're on a delay. Okay, so that's an awful lot to do at the same time. There's an awful lot that's going on. If you have to manually calculate this while you are trying to enter a position, then it's almost asking too much. And this is where we get, and I'm certainly just as liable to these as anybody else. This is where we get into situations where you enter on the wrong side. Oh, I meant to go long and I went short. Oh crap, what do I do? Well, should I hold it and hope that it goes down? Those kind of things. I mean, it's just, if you rush into a position, you will almost certainly make some kind of execution error. It's no bueno. We don't want to be doing that. So this is so easy to screw up if we don't have predefined brackets to work with. And I'm not aware of any predefined brackets. It's not a ladder interface. So perhaps we could predefine some entries on this interface. I just don't know how to do it. So I'm going to show you the manual method, and you can always automate this if you can figure it out. So let's solve this with a tool that I provided for the class. So this was in module 8 Charlie. Under the BitMEX, I've got just a little visual or a literal hyperlink on the first section under the title of it. So let's exit out of here and let's go over to, okay, so I'm going to open up the test net here. And let's say, boy, this is exciting. We're getting some, this is good. We're getting some volume coming into here. Just a wee little bit. Look at this. I still have a stop market down here. Okay, let's get rid of that. That's the problem with this, is that one cancels other means that, like, if you get your profit target, you still have a stop sitting out there and you have to go cancel that stop. And you have to make sure you do that because that turns into an entry. If the price drops, it will fill you with a short position, which is, again, that goes under the category of no bueno. You don't want that to happen. Okay, so let's say that we want to enter a long position. Let's say that we want to enter a long position. Let's go into our 5-minute chart. We can see, let's say auto. There we go. Let's go back to a 1-hour chart to give ourselves a little bit of room to work with on this. Okay, so 1-hour chart, let's say that we wanted to go long. Where would we put our stop? Okay, so let's say that we want to put a stop around 4,000. We think that on the XBT USD, right now we have 40.76. And let's say maybe we want to put our stop all the way down here. Well, let's say 40.20. Let's say 40.20. Now, if you were just to buy this, if you had one Bitcoin of the spot currency sitting there, then you could define this risk quite easily. You could say, well, the difference in price, since I have one Bitcoin, is going to be, in this case, about $60. So if we're putting our stop down here, it's going to be about $60. But we're not using the spot contract. We're using all these XBT USD contracts. And the definition of the contract is really kind of difficult to figure out. It's one contract equals one USD. Well, what does that mean? So what it means is if you want to mimic one for one, so if this goes up by 1 point, if the XBT USD goes up by 1 point and you want to gain $1 in the value of your position, then you would set this up for 4076 contracts. You would mimic the price of the spot currency, the underlying spot currency, by buying that many contracts, and you will mimic the leverage of one Bitcoin with that. Okay, so let's say our stop is down here at 40.20. And we have in our account, we have 1.2345 XBT. I'm not kidding. That is not, I didn't do that on purpose, but I just happen to have in this testnet account 1.2345 XBT or Bitcoin. So what's the quantity? How do we set this for 2% risk? Okay, let's go over to, and I'll see if I can do this without getting too silly here. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just shrink this guy down so that we might be able to put him on the same page. Here, let's do this. Hold on. This is not easy to do. Okay, so let's, I wonder if I can just do that and then have this guy come over. Yeah, that'll be what we'll do here. Okay, so I've got this spreadsheet. Again, this is an open share. So anybody can come along and just completely masticate. I have not really even protected any cells. So I'm just hoping that nobody messes this thing up. But it's not going to be that hard to rebuild if I have to. Or if somebody wants to, they can go in and protect the cells. That'd be fine. Now, I do have some comments that are on here. If you hover your mouse over, hover the cursor over, not the mouse, but the cursor over each of these fields, you can see what kind of the purpose of it, or this, like this cell will be calculated for you, or put your account balance here. So this is a crypto finance plugin, and this is keying off of the spot. It's not necessarily the XBD USD interface, but it's going to get you in the ballpark. Does that make sense? This actually goes out every so often and grabs the live price of Bitcoin versus the US dollar. I don't know what exchange it's using, but it's awfully close. Right now, we can look at the contract details of the XBT USD is 40.76 right now. And at this point, this plugin is showing that it's about 40.60. So we're within about 20 bucks, and that's close enough. Now the account is saying that I have an available balance of 1.2345 XBT. So I'm going to plug that in right there. And it's going to calculate that my account balance is roughly $5,000. So that's just, you can hack apart the spreadsheet. You can put in whatever native fiat currency that you have and do that calculation if you want to. So if you don't want to trade in US dollars as your fiat currency or your currency basis, then change the sheet. It's simple to do. And so now what I have is a 2% risk. So 2% of $5,000 is about $100, and that makes sense. We've got a nice round number that we need to calculate too. Okay, everybody with me so far? What I'm doing in this top part is I'm just putting in my anonymous. Hello, welcome to the spreadsheet. Anonymous Oaks. Okay, I don't know what that is, but welcome aboard. Okay, so I'm just, in this top section here, all I'm doing is I'm just poking in my account balance and making sure that everything is up there. So I want to set the risk parameters to my trade. Okay, everybody with me? So that's 2% risk, and I can also calculate that in terms of Bitcoin too. So I can just take this 1.2345 and divide that into 2%, and we have 0.2469. And you have to kind of do this because BitMEX is a bit of a monster, because in some cases it's using the quantities in US dollars, and in the other case it's using your order value in XBT. So sometimes that there is just room for confusion as well too, if you see what I mean, right? So it's not all denominated into US dollars. Sometimes they use XBT, sometimes they use US dollars. And so it helps to have this do the heavy lifting for you. So again, you can have this done. This should be done before you even get into the position. You can just set this up in the morning. You know what your account balance is. That's the only thing that you need to do. It's just the green squares is where you need to poke in your balance. And so you're welcome to go ahead and go over type what's in there. There's nothing sacred that's in this spreadsheet. You guys can all share it and use it. Now, if more than one person is typing in there at the same time, it's going to get kind of interesting. So if Anonymous Oaks is in there typing, and if I'm typing at the same time, then we're not going to have fun with this, but that's okay. All right, so let's continue. So now we have to set up the trade. So if I get the signal, hey, go long, young man. Here's my entry price. Now, what did I say was my entry price? It's going to be 40.76. So let's change this to 40.76. And I've got a little pick list down here, which is I can go short or long, and let's go long. So what is my price target? Well, I haven't really determined that yet. So I can do something like this. I can squeeze this together, and I can say that, well, maybe my price target is, you know, we're going to do like 10%, or let's just say 40 bucks or something like that. Okay, so let's say my price target, let's just go with 4,200. That's fine. Now, what did I say my stop was? My stop is going to be 4020, isn't it? 4020. That's what I said my stop was going to be. Remember, the green squares are the ones that you can type in. The other stuff you don't have to type in. I would recommend that you don't type in there because you'll hack up the formula. So the stop risk, you can see that these formulas there's a little bit to them. And this is coming straight from the formula that's in the BitMEX help files. So the reference files that are up here, the formula is right out of there. Okay, so here I have, if I have a stop of 4,200, and right now I've got 5,100 contracts poked into there, my risk is going to be $70.73. Now this is going to be interesting. Follow along with this because this is going to push this a little bit in different ways. So can I increase my contract size to make this to 2% position? Yes, I can. So I can maybe go up here to 6,000. We can try that. And it's $83, and I could still go higher. I can go to a 7,000, and that's probably what I want to stop at, is a 7,000, because that's risking $97. The stop risk is risking about 1.94%. Okay, I'm good with that. However, I want to show you something here. Okay, does everybody see what I've done so far? What I've put in is the entry price. I put short or long. I put my price target in there. That doesn't really matter. Here's my actual stop, though, as I put in 4020. So I'm risking on the chart, I'm risking, what is that, $56. $56 of price movement on this stop, but that's not the way that BitMEX is used in terms of position sizing and risk management. So here's the important thing, is the stop risk based on 4020 and based on this number of contracts that I have in here is $97. So this works with my 2%. Now, what I want you to watch is what happens here. If I go over here and go to, and I've just lost it. I hate it when that happens. Let's see if I can bring this back. All right, I'm just going to move this over to a different window. If I go to $7,000, watch what happens here. And this is the crux of the biscuit. This is where people get into trouble. I want you guys to watch this very carefully. Okay, so limit price is 40.76. There we go. We're almost ready to buy long, but wait a minute. Wait a minute here. I can't do it. Look at this. Order value is 1.7173 XBT. And the actual cost is slightly above that. The cost is 1.72 because of commissions. Yes. Uh-oh, I can't afford the entry. What do I do? Can you guys see that? The available balance is 1.2345 XBT, but my order value is much bigger than that. It's almost 50% larger than that. So what I can do is I can go to the dark side here. I can go into leverage and watch what happens if I go and look at the cost. If I go up to 2x leverage, all of a sudden, hey, I can afford that position now. But this is what I don't want you to do. I do not want you to do this. This, to me, is the beginning of the slippery slope. This is where you get into unintended consequences. Nearly every problem that I see with traders getting hit and getting unintended consequences is as a result of using leverage. Almost every single time. It's because of leverage. Leverage causes all kinds of strange issues. So let's do this in a manner that's not going to require me to overtrade my account. Let's do this in a manner that's not going to require me to overtrade my account. So what I can do is I can come back to here and say, well, what can I afford with just unity leverage? And 5,000 seems like it. Do you guys see that? So my available balance is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the order value, let's go back to 1x. The order value, it cost is 1.2296. I can make this position. I can take this position like this. So I need to scale it back to 5,000 contracts. And so what I'm going to do is and this is all the stuff that you need to do within the space of like 30 seconds, right? So you can see, we don't want to do that. There we go. Let's add little doc down there. Okay. That's kind of scary looking at myself like that. Okay, so this is what we want to do. We want to come back to 4076. This is what happens whenever I punch in a number on there. It's, yeah, the 5,000, that's a problem because I just hit that view for that. So sorry about that, guys. You're going to have to look at me for a minute here until I figure it out. Okay, so 4076 and long and the price target, the actual stop, all that's the same, but we're going to dial this back down to 5,000. There we go. And now I've done it again. Every time I hit a number on here. You're trying to edit part of the sheet that shouldn't be changed accidentally. So we're going to cancel that. Okay, so this is going to be, I'm going to do this again. 5,000. Okay, like that. And get rid of that view. Okay, so now the stop risk is only $24. So it's well below 1%. This is the key. Don't think that you always have to be running 2% positions just because that's the golden rule. You can run less than 2%. So in this case, you can run larger positions if you want to, but I would recommend that you stick with 1x leverage to reduce the number of unintended consequences with this. And then if you have lower risk on this, then great. Awesome. So in this case, the stop risk is only 0.48% or about 0.5%. Potential profit is still great. So we have a really nice reward to risk on this trade. And it's looking good. Okay, does that make sense? Do you guys understand what the issue is here and why you need something like this? Now, again, they have... okay, Cryptomaniac has protected my cells. Awesome. Thank you, sir. We have some really amazing members. Okay. You know, I've done that before. I built spreadsheets and protected the cells and done all that stuff. And then what happens is I end up having to put codes down there and all that stuff. And the passwords get lost and it just gets clumsy. So, but that's cool. That's very cool. So do you guys see what we're doing here? Do you guys see why we need something like this? Because you've got more than one variable changing at the same time. You got more than one variable changing at the same time. Now, we could probably even add logic into here. I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, why don't you add the logic into here that based on the size of that gives you an exact, maximum position size. You could certainly do that if you want to. I don't want to complicate things. I don't want to complicate things like that. I don't want to take too much. I think if we do too much for the trader, then they lose what we're trying to do here. So I want you to go through this exercise and see what's going on. And then you can always optimize this to be able to speed things up. But now BitMEX does include a handy dandy little calculator here. So you could play games with this and you could sort of try to figure out what we just went through. But I think the spreadsheet that we have is a little bit more useful for this because it really does center around that 2% risk. That is the most important thing. So what you'll find is professional traders, if you're looking at a trade, the first thing that they'll ask you is how much you're risking. How much are you risking with this position? Whereas most retail traders will say, how much can I make with a position? So you want to get away from that mindset and start to focus on risk. Oh, you want me to give it a try? All right. So if I go into here and if I start to let's see if I can type. Ooh, yeah, I can. Don't want to do that. Yeah, let's cancel that. So, all right. So we have a warning message on here now. So that's cool. That's great. So he's got a warning message. Thank you very much. That's lovely. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to go back off of here. Let's go off of full screen. Let's go back to... So one of the things, I got this email that came in, this is from Tony a couple of weeks ago. And you can start to see some of these issues. This is what happens with this. Now, I still don't know exactly what happened here, but this is Tony's original email. And he's like, okay, I'm entering a trade at $3,500 at a limit price of $39.57 with 100x leverage. So I don't know if this is the number of contracts that he was using, but that's an awful lot. And 100x leverage means that's maximum leverage. This gives me a margin of 0.012 XBT, 2% of my virtual budget. So what Tony is doing in this case is basically he's setting the stop up. And I've seen other guys do this in YouTube, like how to set up, how to use maximum leverage. So you're setting up these asymmetric trades that are not risking that much, but are looking for a big home run, right? So this is all the kind of stuff that we love to read about. We love to read about how do you make a home run trade. But the problem is with this is that you're going to have unintended consequences. Anytime that you're playing around with this, you will get problems. I'm telling you guys, you will get problems with this because all of a sudden, if you lose, you know, they have two data feeds going into spot brokers. If one of them just burps for a second, all of a sudden you're going to see a whip in price for that. You're going to be stopped out without even the chart noticing what happened to that. Because don't forget, a stop, or in this case, a liquidation is going to happen at the market price. Liquidation occurs instantly at the market price. You'll never even see the price blip that occurs to that. So what is going on and how can you control this? Well, you're asking for trouble if you go down this road. If you start using leverage to make up for your lack of account size, you will eventually pay for it. You know, again, there's a lot of guys out there that, you know, they trumpet into the winds how great, you know, 100x leverage, you know, take your small account and triple it in the space of a day. It's absolutely possible, but at the same time, you're opening yourself up to just anarchy and chaos when you do something like this. So what is going on and how can I control this if possible? You do it by staying with 1x leverage. Stay with 1x leverage and use the quality of your system. Don't depend on over leveraging. Don't depend on swinging a bigger stick than you can handle for your account. Now, there's something that probably next month, well, I'm speaking about like at the end of April, so about a month from now, I'm going to be doing a small account class. So it's specifically what can you do if you have a small account, how, you know, like what is the mental edge that you need to be able to trade a small account? What are the execution edge you need to be able to trade? And something else that I'm going to add is some of the ratio-based trading. So ratio-based position sizing. When is it okay to go beyond 2%? And there is a specific time using fixed ratio money management where you're actually levering up as you get into gains, but you have to be very, very disciplined with this, and you have to have a positive profit factor system. So kind of jumping forward here, but there's going to be times where you can do this, but there has to be a science behind it. There has to be math behind it if you're going to do it. Okay. That pretty much wraps up what I wanted to talk about today. So I wanted to come back on BitMEX. I wanted to correct my sins of last week, a little mea culpa here, and show you guys what I did. And I believe this is correct. I believe this is the correct way to use that. The math all works out. And go ahead and beat on this thing and make sure that I didn't make any errors in the spreadsheet. That's always possible to do, because I don't have a whole QA team behind me. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to let you guys know that we may be losing the website here in about 45 minutes or so. We're going to be doing some maintenance on it. We're going to take it into maintenance mode. We're going to kind of take it offline and mirror it somewhere else that's got a better, beefier system behind it. So we're gonna manage that element of it, and it may be down for, I don't know, an hour or something like that. So if there's something that you need off the site, go grab it now, and it should be up just a bit later on this afternoon. So like I said, it's going to be going down maybe about 45 minutes from now, maybe down for an hour or so, but most of you are spending your time over in Discord anyway. That will not go down. The liquidation price depends on the leverage. That is correct. The liquidation price depends on the leverage. So if you want to play around with that, knock yourself out. But I would rather that you not get liquidated. I think liquidation is the wrong thing to do. You don't want to be pushing your account. So it's like what you guys are doing that are using liquidation as a stop is like, okay, we're trying to run a dragster and we're going to run this thing to the 99th percentile of the structural limits of the block because we're trying to win this race, right? So instead of just trying to get to the finish line, it's like we're going to run this thing as hard as it possibly can and any variation at all, and you'll end up flipping and going airborne. And that's an unacceptable risk in my mind. So don't manage your position through liquidation. There's enough of those BitMEX wrecked guys out there. There's a whole Twitter feed dedicated to people that have gotten wrecked in there. And for some reason, I don't know why, but everybody on Twitter seems to think that this is okay, that this is just the way it's being done. And I think this is, again, where we're just propagating these horrible, techniques that are not being carried over from the professionals, from any kind of professional arena. So everything that I'm showing you guys is like basic blocking and tackling. You can always get more aggressive than this if you can prove to yourself that you can carry that. If you earn the right to trade more than 2% risk, then by all means, go for it. Yeah. It's, just some simple things. I swear to you guys, it's like if you can just do the simple things. Rule number 1, identify your exits before you enter a position. If you just do that, you're ahead of 98% of every other retail trader out there that does not do that. They do not define exits before they enter because they're like, oh, there it is. Let's get on board. And they don't think about the consequences about that. They don't think about what will happen if the price does fade from there and what will, at what point will I get out of it? Nope, they're going to ride that thing into the ground. Or if it does moon on them, they won't know when to take profits. And then they're going to be kicking themselves later on. We saw this all through 2017. People were not taking profits into the spikes. Didn't know how to do that. Didn't know where, oh, it's going to 50,000. I'm going to wait till it hits 50. Well, wait a minute. What if it doesn't? It's so simple. And then rule number 2 is the 2% rule. Trade small positions. Do a lot of them. Build a system. Which futures broker would you currently recommend for people from Europe? Okay. So I have gone through, there's a bunch. Now I can't evaluate the Kraken/crypto facilities offering. So there's an awful lot of ones that I just can't even get to. I can't evaluate the Deribit offering. They won't even give me access to it. So there's nothing that I can do to get access into those. So the ones that I can evaluate are the ones that don't use KYC and sort of look the other way. So for example, what I found, and I know how some people feel about this particular broker, and you know who you are, but I found that Prime XBT is actually really simple, and they did a pretty nice job with it. It's really dirt simple. Yeah, you lose some edge with it. It's not going to be as good as Digitex. So Digitex will be worth waiting for if they're as good as what I think that they're going to do it. It's going to be worth it, and we'll know that in about a month. But if you just want something to kick the tires on, something that's dirt simple, much easier to operate than BitMEX, then Prime XBT isn't bad. I found BEX Plus. I'm in the process of evaluating that one right now. It's right up there with Prime XBT. I don't like the interface as much as Prime XBT, but it's really simple to operate. I think there are some customers that are out there using BEX Plus right now. I've actually gotten a different appreciation of BitMEX with this whole process of going through it. BitMEX Now, as far as the liquidity of the underlying, especially the perpetual contract, it is second to none. And that is actually one of the most important things that you can have, is the liquidity of that contract. So if we look at, if we just look at this thing, and if you look at the depth of market between there, so the depth of market right now, if we're just looking at this, let's see. Here's the order book. We're running 40.75.5 on the offer, and we're running 40.75 on the bid. So you've actually got only a $0.5 wide spread between bid and offer, so that's good. All right, so there's nothing wrong with BitMEX trading the perpetual contract, but it's how people use it that I have the problem with, and it's also the way that they set up the leverage. They encourage you guys to use the leverage, even though at your own risk. And I don't like this interface at all in terms of, you know, if you want to go long on something like this, you know, you can't really, you have to set the price. You can't dial in the price. This is all just Mickey Mouse. But BitMEX isn't bad. You know, again, if you're looking at the qualifications for a broker as having, you want the deepest market possible in terms of breadth, market breadth for that, just the depth of market, you're not going to do any better than BitMEX. As long as you can avoid the temptations of overtrading, then this isn't a bad solution for you. So, Cryptomaniac is asking, do you know why the XBT price of BitMEX testnet is not equal to the real net? I don't know that. I can't even get access to, I cannot get access to that. So I'm assuming that the XBT USD is the same price between the testnet and the real, but I could be different because, again, I can't open up an account with them. They will throw me into Pokey. That might be a better question for them, but it doesn't really matter. Again, you're trading relative to the changes in price of the contract. You're renting that contract. So whoever, you know, you're going to notice this is like all these contracts are going to be different prices. They're not going to be anchored to the spot. They are not anchored to the spot. So it's kind of like this. Think of it this way. Okay, so here is, I will just call this the futures depth of market. And it's this sort of virtual thing that's in here, and you're connecting into here. So all of you customers, all the retail customers are connecting into here. And so all the magic happens in this depth of market, which is in the futures. And this is kind of like the XBT USD. And what they're doing is they're hedging off risk back to the spot interfaces. So like in this case, they're using Gemini, and I forget who else that they're using over here, but they're basically, Prime XBT says that they're using 12 different connections on the back end into spot interfaces to hedge off their risk. And they're probably doing some arbitrage in the process anyway. There's all kinds of things that you can do with this. Just compared to the XBT USD chart and trading view with the one on the testnet. Oh, okay. No, I don't know the answer to that. I do not know. That may be something that they can answer for you. Don't know. So it all depends on where you're looking at that. So it doesn't, yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. We can boil the ocean and figure out why. So this is why you're going to see different prices from the spot, because they're going to create their own synthetic market here. And this is what I'm saying is that you want this to be as deep as you possibly can. And when I say depth of market, you want to be, that's what the depth of market is. You want to have hundreds and thousands, if not millions of contracts on both sides of the tape. If it's just not popular, and this is what is going to happen with Digitex, is that they're going to have their own electronic market makers do this to add liquidity, just to make sure that they're trading back and forth, trading back and forth, almost imitating like locals on the floor. Okay, guys, I'm dry here. So that's all I've got with this particular topic. So unless there was something else, I want to wish you guys a great weekend. Hope everybody's having a good time out there and chewing through the classes. And let us know if there's anything else that you'd like to see us produce. We're going to be doing different stratified classes. We're going to be coming out with things called micro classes. So like every 2 weeks, we're going to be producing something of some substance. So it may not be a master class where we're putting out 15 modules, right? So those things, you know, we have to destroy a lot of people to get those things out. It's very difficult to get those things out on time. But a micro class, we can basically sit down for maybe an hour and pump those things out there and then capture it up on the site and do that. So let us know if there's topics that you'd like to see covered with this, and we shall produce. Okay. So thanks everybody for hanging out with me here today, and I wish you guys a great weekend, and we'll see you back here probably Monday or so. Take care.
There goes a sight from my soul. There goes a sight, there goes a sight. Now there goes a sight from my soul. There goes a sight from my soul.